My sister got a standing ovation at Thanksgiving. My parents literally stood up from the table and clapped while she announced she was pivoting to wellness coaching full-time. I was sitting 2 feet away, and I had just closed a $2.3 million contract for my company 3 days earlier. Nobody knew. I hadn't told them yet. I opened my mouth to share it, and my mom turned to my sister and said, "We are so proud of you for betting on yourself, sweetheart." I closed my mouth, picked up my fork, and ate my mashed potatoes in silence. My name is Claire Brennan. I'm 31 years old. I run a small but profitable operations consulting firm out of Nashville, Tennessee, and for most of my adult life I have been the invisible one. And that Thanksgiving was the night I decided I was done being invisible. 3 weeks later, I wired $87,000 from my business account and bought a fully restored 1967 Ford Mustang Fastback, matte black, custom interior, the exact car I'd been staring at on a collector's website for 2 years. I paid in full. I had it shipped to a storage unit 3 miles from my parents' house in Louisville. I didn't tell anyone. But my dad has a Google alert set for our family name, old habit from when he used to coach Little League and liked seeing his name in the local paper. He never turned it off. The seller posted a thank you on a classic car forum, mentioned the buyer's name. Claire Brennan, Nashville. Beautiful car, great transaction. My dad called me within the hour. Claire Elizabeth Brennan, he said full name, the way he used to say it when I was 16 and came home after curfew. What in the world did you buy? I leaned back in my office chair and smiled at the ceiling. A car, I said. I'll explain everything at Christmas. He sputtered for 30 seconds straight. Then he said the words I had been half expecting and half dreading since the moment I clicked purchase. Family dinner, Christmas Eve. Everyone is going to be there. We need to talk about this. I held the phone against my shoulder and looked out my window at the Nashville skyline. I wasn't afraid. I was prepared. Have you ever spent years making yourself smaller so someone else could seem bigger? Before I tell you what happened at that dinner, I want to know what time is it where you are, and where are you watching from? I want to see how many of us there are out there. Let me back up. Because the Mustang was never really about the Mustang. My sister Jenna is 3 years younger than me. She's beautiful, charming, and has the unique talent of being able to announce a life change and have a room full of people act like she just cured something. She's been a yoga instructor, a travel blogger, a hemp candle entrepreneur, and most recently, a wellness coach who charges $200 an hour to tell people to drink more water and journal their feelings. I say none of this with meanness. Jenna is genuinely warm. She lights up a room. My parents have always known it, and they have spent the last 15 years acting accordingly. I chose the boring path. Business degree, then a corporate job I hated, then 6 years of grinding to build my own firm. I work in logistics optimization, which is a phrase that makes people's eyes glaze over at parties, but which has quietly turned into something real. My clients are mid-sized companies that are bleeding money from operational inefficiency, and I fix it. It's not glamorous. It doesn't make for a great Instagram story. My parents have introduced me at family events as Claire. She does something with spreadsheets. Had just signed the biggest contract of her career. But that's not even the part that broke something open in me. The contract was just the trigger. The real thing, the thing that had been sitting in my chest for years like a stone, started the night I drove home for a weekend visit in October and found my mom at the kitchen table going over Jenna's finances. Not in a general, parental way. In a detailed, hands-on, this is my responsibility way. She had Jenna's bank statements open on her laptop. She had a legal pad with numbers on it. She was calculating how much it would cost to cover Jenna's studio rental for 6 months while she built her client base. I stood in the doorway for a moment before my mom noticed me. "Oh, Claire," she said, minimizing the window. "I didn't hear you come in." "What are you doing?" I asked, even though I already knew. "Just helping your sister get organized," she said. "You know how she is with money." "How much?" I asked. My mom got quiet. The way she gets quiet when she's deciding whether to treat me like an adult or protect the family narrative. "Your dad and I are covering her studio for a few months," she said finally. Just until she gets established. From what account? I asked. More quiet. Then, we had a little put aside. I let it go. I drove home that night replaying the words. A little put aside. Because here's the thing, 5 years earlier, when I was trying to get my firm off the ground, I had asked my parents for a $15,000 loan. Just a loan. I had a repayment plan, a timeline, a business plan I'd spent 3 weeks refining. My dad had looked at it, nodded slowly, and then told me he thought it was better for me to figure it out on my own. That struggling was how you learned whether you really wanted something. I figured it out on my own. I got a small business loan through a credit union. I paid it back in 2 years. I never asked them for money again. Jenna's studio rental, I looked it up, was $2,200 a month. 6 months, at least. $13,200. For a wellness coaching studio, from the same parents who told me that struggling was educational. I sat with that number for weeks. I told myself it wasn't a competition. I told myself parents aren't always fair, and that's just life. I told myself that Jenna needed more help because she was, in their words, more sensitive, more creative, more in need of a soft landing. What I couldn't tell myself was that it didn't hurt. Because it did. It had always hurt. I had just spent so many years being the steady one, the self-sufficient one, the one who didn't need anything, that I had forgotten I was allowed to feel it. Then came Thanksgiving, the standing ovation, and something in me finally said, enough. What would you do if you realized your family had a different financial safety net for you than for your sibling, one that only activated when you didn't need it? My best friend from college is a woman named Petra Owens. She grew up in a family with 5 kids where resources were genuinely scarce, so she has zero patience for what she calls rich family favoritism theater. I called her the morning after Thanksgiving. They stood up and clapped, I said. Standing ovation. For quitting. What were you doing at that exact moment? She asked. Sitting there with a $2.3 million contract that nobody knew about. She was quiet for exactly 2 seconds. Then she said, Claire, buy the car. I laughed. We had talked about the Mustang before I'd shown her photos, rambled about the specs, done the whole embarrassing thing where you plan a big purchase you keep talking yourself out of. She'd always told me I deserved it. It's not about the car, I said. I know it's not about the car, she said. But you have been sitting on that money for 2 years telling yourself you should save it. Be responsible. Be practical. You've been punishing yourself for succeeding because your family never made it feel safe to succeed. I didn't say anything. Buy the car, she said again, and then figure out the rest. I bought the car that afternoon. But Petra was right, the car was the beginning, not the answer. Because after I wired the money, I sat at my desk for a long time thinking about what I actually wanted. Not from my family, from myself. I didn't want revenge. I want to be honest about that. I've thought about it since, and it was never revenge. It was something closer to recognition. I wanted to stop pretending that the way my family treated me was fine. I wanted to say, out loud, that the 2-tiered system they'd built where Jenna was the one who got rescued, and I was the one who didn't need anything, had cost me something real. Not just the loan they didn't give me. The years I spent believing I was the wrong kind of daughter. My dad's panicked phone call told me he'd seen the forum post, which meant Christmas was going to be a confrontation whether I planned for it or not. So I planned for it. I pulled out 5 years of records. I am, in fairness to my career, very good at documentation. I had emails. I had my original loan request, the one my dad had declined with a handwritten note at the top. Proud of you for trying, but you need to learn this one yourself. I had screenshots of their Venmo to Jenna, which she'd never set to private, showing regular transfers, some labeled studio, some rent. One memorably labeled, "You're doing amazing, sweetie." I did the math. Conservative estimate. Over $40,000 in the past 3 years. I wasn't planning to wave this around like a weapon. But I wasn't walking in empty-handed either. The night before I drove to Louisville, I called Petra. "You're not going there to blow up the family," she said. "You're going there to stop playing a role they assigned you." "The competent one," I said. "The one who doesn't need anything," she said. Which is a convenient story for people who want to feel like good parents without doing equal work. I thought about that for a long time after we hung up. The competent one. The one who doesn't need anything. I had worn that identity so long it felt like skin. My parents had given it to me when I was about 12, and I had never once handed it back. The Mustang was sitting in a storage unit 20 minutes from their house. I had arranged to pick it up in the morning, before the dinner. I wanted to drive it to their door. Not to show off. To show up as myself, the version of myself that bought what she'd earned, without apologizing, without minimizing, without hiding it in the back of the driveway. I was done hiding. Picking up the Mustang felt like meeting someone I had been waiting for. The storage facility was one of those places with fluorescent lights and a guy behind a scratched-up desk who barely looked at me when I signed the release form. I followed him to Unit 14, and when he rolled up the door, I just stood there for a moment. It was more beautiful than the photos. The matte black paint absorbed the light instead of reflecting it. The chrome details on the grille, the original body lines, it looked like something that had decided to be exactly what it was and hadn't compromised on a single inch. I drove it out onto the street, and the sound of the engine made two guys in a pickup truck at the intersection turn and stare. I understand that now, as something people do at classic cars. In the moment, it just felt like, oh, this is what it feels like to take up space. I drove to my parents' house with the windows down in the December cold, and I did not care even slightly. Their house is a nice colonial, in a quiet neighborhood where everyone has the same 3 cars in the driveway. Sensible, practical, matching the suburb. When I turned onto their street, I watched a neighbor slow his dog walk to get a second look. I pulled into my parents' driveway behind Jenna's Prius, which, for the record, my parents had co-signed and turned off the engine. My dad appeared at the front window. I saw the curtain move. By the time I got to the door, he was waiting. He looked at the car, then at me, and said, "That's it." "That's it," I said. He nodded slowly, like a man recalibrating. "It's a nice car." "I know," I said. "Can I come in?" My mom hugged me in the hallway, which is what she does when she's nervous. She leads with physical affection like it can reset the temperature. My grandmother was there. My aunt, Jenna, in the kitchen doing something with an essential oil diffuser. "Is that really yours?" Jenna asked when I came in. No malice, just genuine shock. "How did you?" "I bought it," I said. "How was Thanksgiving recovery? Your studio going well?" She tilted her head. "How did you know about the studio?" "Mom mentioned it," I said. Dinner was the thing you do before the real thing. My grandmother asked about my work. I told her the honest version. The contract, the client list, what my firm actually does, and she nodded like she was proud. My dad listened from across the table with an expression I couldn't quite read. My mom kept looking at me the way she does, when she's trying to decide if she needs to manage me. After dessert, my dad set down his coffee cup and said, "Okay, let's talk." We moved to the living room. My grandmother and aunt sensed the shift and disappeared to the kitchen. It was me, my parents, and Jenna, on the beige furniture that hadn't changed since I was 17. I had my folder in my bag. I didn't take it out yet. "Claire," my dad started, "the car is a lot of money." $87,000, I said. "Cash." My mom winced at the number. "That's more than some people make in a year," I said. "I know, and I earned it. My company is doing very well. I'm doing very well. You'd know that if you'd ever asked." A pause. "We ask," my mom said softly. "You ask how I'm doing. You don't ask about my work. You don't ask what I've built." When I tried to tell you about my contract at Thanksgiving, you both turned to Jenna before I finished my sentence. Jenna looked down at her lap. "That's not fair," my mom started. 5 years ago," I said, "I came to you and asked for a $15,000 loan to start my firm. I had a business plan, a repayment timeline. I wasn't asking for a gift." Dad said no. He said I needed to learn to do it on my own. My dad's jaw shifted. "I believed in you. You believed in me enough to let me figure it out alone," I said. "And I did. I'm grateful for that, honestly. It pushed me. But that same year, and I didn't know this until recently, you started covering Jenna's expenses. And you've been covering them since." I did the math. I took the folder out now. I set it on the coffee table, but didn't push it toward them. I'm not here to present a legal case, I said. I'm not angry in a way that wants money back. I'm angry in a way that wants honesty. My dad looked at the folder. Where did you get those? Venmo is public if you don't lock it, I said simply. And Jenna talks about the support she gets. She's never been secretive. I put two and two together. Jenna made a small sound. I didn't think. I know you didn't, I said. I don't blame you. You were offered help and you took it. Anyone would. I'm not here about Jenna. I looked at my parents. I'm here because I've spent 15 years being the child you didn't worry about. Which sounds like a compliment. I know you mean it as one. But what it actually meant was, you didn't check on me. You didn't invest in me. When I hit walls, you told me the walls were good for me. When Jenna hit walls, you took out a credit card. And I never said anything, because I told myself it was fine. I was fine. I'm always fine. My mom's eyes had gone glassy. You are fine, she said quietly. Look at what you've built. I built it anyway, I said. But it wasn't because you prepared the ground for me. It was despite the fact that you didn't. And I want you to understand that those are two completely different things. My dad rubbed a hand over his face. We made judgment calls, he said. You were always so capable. Jenna needed more. Jenna needed more support, I said. Or Jenna was allowed to need more support. Because those aren't the same thing either. You decided I was capable and stopped there. You decided Jenna needed help and started writing checks. You never asked me if I needed help. You just decided I didn't. The room was quiet. Jenna spoke first. I didn't know about the loan thing, she said. The one you asked for. They never told me. I know, I said. I would have. I don't know. Said something. She shook her head. That's not right. No, I said. It's not. My dad put his hands flat on his knees. The gesture he makes when he's about to say something he's prepared. We love you equally, he said. You know that. Love isn't the issue, I said. The issue is behavior. You can love two kids equally and still treat them like they have different amounts of value, which is what you did. The car isn't about the car. I bought it because I wanted it, I could afford it, and for the first time I didn't want to minimize something good in my life, so you'd be more comfortable. I paused. I've been doing that for years. Making myself small so there'd be more room for Jenna to be big. I'm done. My mother pressed her fingers to her mouth. My dad looked at the floor. Then he said, very quietly, we didn't see it that way. I know, I said. That's the part that hurts most. There was more after that. There always is. My mom cried and I held her because I'm not made of stone and she's still my mother. My dad got defensive for about 20 minutes and then went quiet for longer than that, which is what he does when something gets through. Jenna went to the kitchen and came back with 2 mugs of tea, which is her version of, I don't know what to say, but I'm still here. At one point my dad said, what do you want from us, Claire? An apology? We'll apologize. We're sorry. What else? I want you to see Jenna clearly, I said. She's 31 years old. She's not fragile. You've built her a world where she doesn't have to be. And that's not kindness, that's a ceiling. She's talented, and she's smart, and she's capable of standing on her own. Stop treating her like she isn't. Jenna made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. I've been saying that, she said quietly. For a while, actually. That surprised me. I looked at her. I've asked them to stop, she said. Or I've said it's too much. They keep telling me it's fine. They want to help. She shrugged, a small, uncomfortable movement. I didn't know it was coming from a place that was hurting you. Something loosened a little in my chest. I'm not asking them to stop supporting you, I said. I'm asking them to do it with their eyes open, and to understand that the way they supported you and the way they dealt with me were not the same, and that I spent years thinking that meant something was wrong with me. Jenna reached over and put her hand on my arm. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. My dad cleared his throat. We owe you more than an apology, he said slowly. I know that. I don't know how to fix 15 years. But that loan, the 15,000, we should have helped. I don't need it now, I said. I know, but we should have. It wasn't everything. It wasn't the conversation that fixes a lifetime of imbalance. But it was the first time my father had ever looked me in the face and said out loud that they'd gotten something wrong. Not something vague, not something general, but something specific that had cost me. I drove home that night with the windows up this time, the Mustang eating up the dark highway. Nashville 2 hours out. I had the radio off and the heat on, and I let myself feel every complicated thing at once. Things didn't change overnight. I want to be honest about that. My parents went through a period of overcorrection, calling me too often, asking detailed questions about my work in a way that felt performed rather than genuine. My dad forwarded me a podcast episode about equity versus equality in parenting, with a message that said, "Just thought this was interesting," which is his way of saying, "I've been thinking about what you said." Jenna texted me on New Year's Eve. Talked to them about the studio support, asked them to back off. They're backing off. Thanks for saying what I didn't know how to say. That one I saved. The Mustang sits in my Nashville garage, and I drive it on Sunday mornings when the roads are quiet. It still sounds like something that decided to be exactly what it is. I still feel the same thing I felt that first day, like I've been given permission to take up the space I already occupied. I don't think I bought it to prove something. I think I bought it because I'd spent years not letting myself want things loudly. Not letting success sound like success. Not celebrating contract closings or good quarters, or the simple fact that something I built from nothing was actually working. And I want to say this clearly to anyone watching who understands this from the inside. Being the capable one, the self-sufficient one, the one who figures it out, that's not a personality flaw. It's not a reason to be overlooked. It's not proof that you don't need care, support, or to be seen. Competence is not the same as not needing anything. Stability is not the same as being okay with whatever you're handed. And the fact that you built something beautiful in the space where support was missing doesn't mean the missing support didn't cost you. You're allowed to say so. You're allowed to name it, calmly, with your documents on the table, and your car in the driveway, and your voice steady, even when it shakes. And you're allowed to buy the car, the trip, the experience, whatever it is that you've been quietly talking yourself out of, because some part of you still believes that taking up space needs to be earned from people who already took yours. It doesn't. So here's my question for you. Have you ever made yourself smaller so someone else could seem bigger? And if you found out that smallness was being exploited, not by accident but by habit, what would you do about it? Tell me in the comments. I'm listening.